Hello, and welcome to Nostalgia Marcana. I'm your host, Doug Leaf. Each episode of this podcast, we'll look back on the movies, TV, games, people, and phenomena that we still love talking about all these years later, and ask ourselves why these bits of pop culture still enchant us today. This week, we'll be revisiting...
Let's go fast. We're talking about Super Mario Kart today, the first game that launched a franchise and really expanded the world of Mario beyond what it had been before. Sure, Mario had golfed a bit, played tennis a little bit, been a doctor for a little while, got his medical license and such, but Mario Kart really blew open the doors pretty wide as to all of the different things Mario could do besides run and jump. So I'm really glad we're talking about this first entry in the franchise because it sure meant a lot to me, and I know it meant a lot to our guest. He has been on the show many times before, most recently, for those listening, during our holiday coverage for Ernest Saves Christmas and Halloween for The Thing, and many other episodes besides that. The player two to my player one, please welcome back Rich Baker.
Red Shell. Excellent. Oh, man, I'm super excited to talk about this one, Doug.
This game's real special. It shows up on lists of the greatest games ever made a lot of times. Yeah. And I think, there's a fair argument to be made that this got refined and that later entries in the series are maybe objectively better. But this first one still holds up very, very well. I went back and played it a little bit today just to refresh myself for the podcast. And I can say this is one of those subjects that I did not have to do a lot of research to get ready for. It was all still encoded in the back of my brain. So, but Rich, tell me your nostalgic memories of this game and why we're talking about it today.
As we've already discussed a few Mario games on here, I was a big fan of Mario and Super Nintendo in general. And I remember reading in Nintendo Power, they were coming out with Super Mario Kart. And I remember as a kid just rolling my eyes, like they're just going to slap Mario onto something and we're expecting us to buy it. But of course, I rented it and I played it and it just grabbed me right away and I ate my words. And I was like, nope, they did not just slap Mario onto some game. They made a game that, I had no idea it was going to be, a 10 game franchise or whatever it is currently. But I just knew that it was like one that I wanted to play again. And I didn't ask to buy a lot of games because usually I just rent one on the weekend and, play it. But I was like, I asked my parents, I was like, can I own this one? I'm going to play it constantly.
Yeah, I don't remember when it first came into my world, but I was a Nintendo Power reader, so that's probably where I first became aware of it. Maybe a commercial. I'm not sure. It's funny you say they didn't just slap Mario onto this. They kind of did. If you look at the development, they were looking at, I guess the first place to start with this is you have to go back to F-Zero. That's where the story starts. F-Zero, for those who don't know, was a futuristic racing game. It was a launch title for the Super Nintendo. I played it. I enjoyed it. Soundtrack still kicks ass.
Very much so.
Yeah. Tell me, you must have some memories of F-Zero.
I loved F-Zero. I still think it's fun, but like it pales in comparison to Mario Kart because it's very fast, and they use this M7 chip or M something chip that kind of was new, and it allowed this kind of 3D space and it moved really fast. But the problem with F-Zero and what you're going to talk about next is the reason why this game even exists is because it was only one player. So you could only get so much enjoyment out of a racing game by yourself, and with this game, clearly get a lot more with your friends.
Yeah, you mentioned the Mode 7.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, Mode 7, we've talked about it on the podcast before. This came up, I think, when we talked about Super Mario World, for example. But Mode 7 was a chip on the Super Nintendo that allowed it to take a 2D image and scale it and bend it. So it could shrink things, it could expand things, and it could twist them into shapes. And what that meant was you could make a 2D racing track. It's still a 2D image, but it's turned in such a way that it gives you the impression of 3D as you move across this spot or this map that they've created, and that's what F-Zero was. It was the simplest version of this.
Yeah, and it looked great. I mean, it was very futuristic, and they had the cars had drivers with backstories, and they all had their own look. And I mean, it was a fun game.
It was all right. It was hard. What it had was this, but one of the things that was important to F-Zero, as I recall, was this skidding around the track, sort of drifting. That would end up becoming a big feature of Mario Kart. And so when this idea for a kart racer was being batted around, and at least from what I read, they had this image of the kart that they had 16 different sprites, so you give the impression of seeing it from a 360-degree view or close to it. And they said, well, it doesn't look quite right. We need to see what it looks like with a driver in it. I don't know. Let's put Mario in it and see how that looks. And they all just fell in love with the idea of oh, well, that's it. That's the game, right?
Yeah. But the game at that point was just a straight racer. I mean, they didn't have items. They didn't have battle mode. All they had was a 2-player racer. So they did slap Mario at that point, but then Mario was the catalyst for all the things that we love about the game and that would be, continue on the franchise to this day.
Well, there's definitely something to be said for take a thing and combine it with an IP you already love. It's you definitely get a few extra bonus points by going well, this game is okay, but the fact that it's Star Wars or whatever, it's okay, I'm going to give it just a little more grace because it's incorporating this fun stuff that I like. So it helps, but honestly, even if you stripped all the Mario away from it, the mechanics, the code is still rock solid.
100%.
Did you play a lot of racing games before this one?
A little bit. As I said, I did like F-Zero, so I played that one. And I remember, was it Excite Bike, I think. There was that one. There was RC Pro-Am. There was a number of racing games. I wouldn't say they were my favorite by any stretch, but, I mean, I definitely played them. Did you?
Yeah, I started, I definitely played Pole Position for the Atari to show how old I am.
Pole Position, yeah.
So I definitely grew up when I was a very little kid playing Pole Position. But you mentioned a lot of these other ones, right? I definitely played Excite Bike. Excite Bike is cool, but that's a side-scrolling motorcycle racer where the fun is going over these pits and jumps and stuff. And the real fun of that was it had a tool where you could make your own course. That was the thing we spent all our time doing with that. And then RC Pro-Am I loved. It was very hard. It was an isometric racing game. That was the view. Mm-hmm. So you're looking at the entire track, or it's zoomed in, but generally you're looking at the track from overhead, not from the driver's seat or behind the car.
Yeah.
And which is fine during the first part of the race, but at some point, as you come around the circle, when you hit the button to go left, that meant the car on the screen went to the right because now the car is facing toward you, and that aspect of the game was that was the biggest challenge that always broke your brain as you tried to do it.
100%. Yeah, it was very difficult. I'd crash all the time.
Oh yeah, but I believe that game did have some kind of an upgrade system, right?
Possibly, I don't know.
My vague memory is it wouldn't persist from game to game, but you'd start the game with your car at nothing, but as you would go around the track, you would get some kind of a in-game currency that you would allow, or that would allow you to like, oh, now I have bigger tires with better traction or something. You could
forgot all about that. Good memory. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So there's a little of that, but generally, that's the thing about Mode 7 here is Mode 7 really permitted the feeling on a home console of what you want in a racing game, which is driving around the track.
Yeah. Yeah. And it feels like that. I remember Genesis, after Super Mario Kart was starting to destroy numbers, that Genesis had like a commercial for like Sonic the Hedgehog, and they were like, don't go slow, and they'd show a screenshot of Super Mario Kart. And I just remember thinking, like, I don't feel like I'm going slow in Super Mario Kart. Like, I understand that Sonic moves really, really fast, and I didn't hate Sonic, but like, I love the gameplay of Super Mario Kart. It feels like a good speed.
Yeah, if you actually drove around a track at the speed at which Sonic runs, your brain couldn't process where you were going in time to make a curve. You would just crash immediately.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't work. And of course they did ultimately make some Sonic racing games, not for the Genesis, I don't think, but for later
Game
consoles.
Gear, I think.
Game Gear? Yeah. He definitely goes slower around the track than he runs left to right in a platforming situation.
Yeah.
That was always the thing though with Genesis, is they were trying to the advantage the Genesis had was that it could process things at speed, but it did not have the capability of doing Mode 7, which meant that for certain kinds of things like Mario Kart, the Genesis could never do it. The hardware wouldn't allow for it.
Yeah. And so going back to what you're saying, like F-Zero had this Mode 7 thing and it looked great, but you could only play one player. And so the people at Nintendo were like, what if, can we make an F-Zero that's 2-player? And, that's that. If it wasn't for someone asking that question, we'd never have Mario Kart.
Yeah, I mean, definitely having the second player. I mean, look, that's an innovation that's as old as video games themselves, is having the second player. Yeah. So it's not surprising that they hit on that. But it's the way it's implemented here that is so special. So we'll get to all the like quirks that make this an unusual racing game, because the thing about F-Zero is it's just a race, right? Yeah. There's nothing going on except drive as skillfully as you can. There are some speed boosts on the track that you can take advantage of, but that's it.
Some ramps and things like that. Yeah.
Right, but it doesn't have the suite of power-ups and things that really brings Mario Kart to life and sets it apart from other racing games. Because, like, we live in a world now where there's things like Forza, where, like, the goal is to really simulate as closely as possible what it would be like to drive an actual real-world vehicle around an actual real-world track. And Mario Kart takes the opposite approach, which is like, this is an amusement park. It's bumper cars. Go have fun.
Yeah, and it's as much as I love like later titles that would do like a more 3D thing, like a Donkey Kong Country or something like that. I love that this still felt, the pixelated 2D cartoon, and the later versions, they'd kind of lean into that more. They're very cartoonish, very big colors and that kind of thing. And that's still part of the charm for me.
Yeah, visually, it really feels like it builds off of Super Mario World, which at that point was the last mainline Mario title.
Yep.
Like the sound palette is the same. Like when you hear like the coin sounds and stuff, the font Like those kinds of little things that just make it feel like we took the Super Mario World and said, what if you could race through it?
And specifically the tracks themselves. Like every track is indicative of some level in Super Mario World. I think even Rainbow Road, I mean, really that's, kind of like the secret levels a little bit.
The Star Road. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of. And we'll get to the tracks. We're not going to necessarily go through them one by one, but we'll talk about
there's a lot of tracks.
Well, it'd also be very boring to be like, well, this one is squiggly. It's extra squiggly. It's not doesn't really make for good podcasting. So let's kind of talk about the marquee features here. The first, actually, before we even get into the features of the game, we got to credit the soundtrack.
So good.
It's good. It's not Shigeru Miyamoto. The composer is Soyo Oka. So I'm not familiar with that person. I looked on Wikipedia. It's not a blue link, so I can't see what else they did. But they did ice hockey for sure, and they did one of the flying games. I can't remember which one that one of the other people worked on, but they'd had a history at Nintendo. Yeah, and this one's produced by Shigeru Miyamoto, but he's not the director.
Yeah.
So, but he's still, I'm sure he had a hand in it. This is, it has all of the hallmarks of the team, the main Nintendo team, even though that's not who's directly working on it as hands-on this time around.
Yeah.
The game really comes alive though because of its sort of there's only how many tracks are there? There's 20, something like that.
About
20-ish tracks. Many of them are different variations on a theme, right? So there's a ghost house, and then there's a different ghost house. So it's similar motif, slightly different layout.
A lot of sequels, yeah.
Yeah, but what they do, it's like you never get tired of racing them, especially with a friend. And I think the reason is it's what the tracks lack in complexity or interest. It's all made up for in this chariot race kind of theming, which is that's what it feels like. It's like it's a more whimsical version of a Roman chariot race.
Yeah, it's like a Roman chariot race, and Wacky Races kind of had a baby.
That, but also not so much like real Roman chariot races, but like the way they're portrayed in movies, right?
Yeah.
Where you're like, it's the guy, this guy's got the little spikes on his wheels as he's getting close to, Ben-Hur or whoever, and he's going to rip up the chariot. And that's where all of these power-ups come in.
Yeah, and every driver has their own individual stats, or the pairs of drivers do. So, who you choose makes a difference.
Yeah, mostly in terms of mass, right? So, if you pick, for example, the big racers, which are Bowser and Donkey Kong, or is it Donkey Kong Jr., actually? I can't remember.
Donkey Kong Jr., yeah, because they did it because from the back, they liked that he had a shirt, and Donkey Kong didn't. They say, well, I want a shirt.
Okay. Probably the last mainline appearance of Donkey Kong Jr., by the way. He's not a weird game if you've ever played it, the old Donkey Kong Jr. Anyway, they're big, and so that means that affects their handling and acceleration, right? They're slow, but they can have the highest top speed, and they have the least, they have very good, tight handling because of that. But if you value acceleration, you're going to, it'll take you better not screw up because it'll take you a while to get back up to speed with everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. But then, Yoshi and Princess, they have the fastest acceleration, but their top speed isn't as much, and their handling isn't as great. So they really did a good job of balancing the 8 different racers.
Yeah, and there's only 8 of them, and there's really, like I said, there's 4 different types. So, but what that does is that means that if you have a second player and you both want to play as the same, racer type, you can both do that. Taking
100%.
one. Yeah, that's nice. It means that taking one doesn't eliminate that from the other. That's not a problem now when the roster has, 32 different racers you can pick from.
Now, did you have preferred of the 8 racers that you always like to do, or did you care?
I definitely cared. I tried them all. Like, I felt like I have to beat this game with every single one of them, all the tracks, which I'm sure over the course of my ownership I did.
Same.
So, but I'm trying to remember if I had one that I preferred. I probably tended to pick Yoshi because I thought Yoshi was cool, not because of any gameplay reason.
Nice. Yeah. Yoshi was, I liked the Yoshi princess stats. They were better for the way I play. And so if a friend wanted to play Yoshi, I was princess. But if no one wanted him, I was Yoshi.
One thing I noticed as I was replaying it is I'd forgotten that like the NPC, like the racers you're not playing as, have a couple of like things they can do that you can't do when you're playing as them. So like Yoshi, for example, can like lay eggs and as obstacles and stuff. I'm like, how come I can't do that when I'm playing as Yoshi? It's like, that's just how it is. Like the series did away with that, but it's an interesting idea that like, yeah, you're whoever you don't pick has extra tools up their sleeve to mess with you.
Well, and the most frustrating one was Mario and Luigi. When they're NPCs, they can turn themselves into star power kind of at will. And so, like, if you're racing near them, any moment they could star power and just knock you in and spin you out.
I forgot about that. That's bullshit.
Yeah, they fixed that in the later ones, as you said. I have no problem saying that the later ones are better, but like they took this great concept that was great in and of itself and then said, how can we make this better?
Yeah. And we're up to the 9th, I think, version with the new one on the Switch too, Super Mario Kart World or whatever it's called, which I have not tried. I don't have a Switch 2, so I have not gotten my hands on that yet. Looks great, but I've not played it. We played a lot of Mario Kart 8 around here. Because we have that for the Switch, and the kids love it. Like, they play all the time.
Nice.
And so it's funny when you said, let's do this, and I'm like, I've forgotten so much about how the original one is, because all of my recency bias and all that. But yeah, it took me a while to go like, oh, right. It wasn't always like that. It was, this earlier version is kind of different.
Yeah. I mean, 4th best-selling game, I think, in Super Nintendo history, and number 1 best-selling game in Super Famicom history. And yet almost lost to history by anyone who wasn't around at the time, because the sequels are somewhat, they just keep improving, or at least they probably.
Yeah, I will say that is one thing where, like, we've done episodes on Super Mario 3, Super Mario World, 64. You go back to those, they still play great. You could play them now. Yep. You have a great time. Definitely going back to Super Mario Kart, the original, you do feel like, you're losing all of these innovations. And so while it plays well, there's definitely a sense of like, but if I'm going to pick one up, like, I'm not going to play the old one for that reason.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But let's talk about what's there in the old one. The power-ups are, to me, this is the secret sauce that it turns it from a normal racing game into, what Mario Kart uniquely is, and every other like kart racer or things like it, like they all copy this. Like this, some version of this is in there, whether it's like, I don't know, the shitty licensed like Family Guy racer or whatever they put out. They're gonna have something.
Yeah, a lot of carbon copy. Anytime there's a big hit, everyone goes, well, let me do my version of it,
Yeah, the Sonic one, I know, does this. Like, you have to have this. So let's talk about what's in there, because, like, they kept adding to these, but the core ones are still there. Most of them.
The first one that you talk about is the green shell because it's straight from Mario, and it does kind of the same thing, right? You get a green shell in the original Mario, if you knock one out, it just goes forward until it hits something, and if it hits something, it bounces back, and that's kind of what this one does.
And it'll go forever. It'll just continually just bounce around the track, in a straight line. Like it's just a physics-based projectile at that point until it hits something, which could be you. One thing I like about it is you can, as with most of these, you can drop it behind you. So what this game does, later games you could turn on a rear view mirror basically at will with the press of a button. And here what you do is if you're racing, I think you can do that here too, right? You can turn on your rear. Okay. So you can look at
only when you have an item. Yeah.
Right. But if you're playing single player, it will show, you can see the map in the lower half of the screen. So you can know if someone's close to you based on the map. If you're playing 2-player though, and you turn on your rear view mirror, it means you're going to lose your forward facing view for a second. But if you see someone's behind you, you can go like, and just drop it, right at them. And that always felt very satisfying when you scored that hit.
Yeah. When hitting someone forward with a green shell is a marksman award because you have to aim really well. Dropping it behind right when that feels super satisfying too. So the green shell is for skilled players or for players who just want to flood the arena with moving projectiles.
Yep. And then you get the red shell, which is kind of OP, but basically it is a homing missile that'll home in on the next racer ahead of you, and hard to dodge. You can do it. You can drop. If you're good and you've got a projectile that you can drop to the rear, you can kill it with one of those, or you skid around a corner enough and you might be able to evade it.
Yeah. And they're not guaranteed, the red shells, because they're not just those ways, but there's some ways that you shoot them at an enemy and somehow it misses or something like that. So it's not like 100% of the time you're going to hit your target, but it was pretty reliable if you had open road in front of you.
Yeah, if someone went around a corner, there was a chance it wouldn't be able to tail them all the way. Yeah. But if you're close enough, which is, you don't have to be that close, it's a pretty reliable way of taking out a person. And easily one of the best ones available. There's the feather, which is interesting. This they removed. I don't remember when along the way it disappeared, but it's certainly not there now as a power up you can get. And it looks like the feather from Super Mario World, but it doesn't let you fly. It just lets you do a very high jump.
Yep.
So not useful for combat, but useful for taking advantage of shortcuts.
And you can dodge a red shell with the feather.
Yeah, limited use, but like it's definitely the one that if you get it, you hold on to it going like, I know where that shortcut is. I can jump over that wall or that bottomless pit and shave off a good chunk of this track.
Mm-hmm. And it's also helpful in tracks that have where you can fall off the track, like Rainbow Road. If a turn's really tight, you can jump and just kind of skip the turn a little bit.
Yeah. What else we got here? We got the mushroom.
Yep. Big old power boost.
Yep. Speed boost. Very, very useful. You've got. Did you get the fire flower? Is that here? I'm trying to remember.
No, there's no
That's
fire
later.
flower, but there's coins, which are, if you're in first, you get coins a lot because of the way that the statistics in the game are. And coins do have a purpose in this game. It's because if you get hit, it'll take coins away, or if you fall off the track and someone has to pull you back on, it costs you coins. So like accumulating coins is part of the strategy. So if you get 2 coins, you're like, well, I can't really do anything with this, but it can kind of keep my coinage up.
Yeah. Oh, I remember what we didn't talk about. There's the banana peel.
It's got 2 functions, just like the green shell, right? So you can put it behind you, like the green shell, so they have that in common. But the other one, you can launch it forward if you think you can get it in front of someone.
Yeah, but it won't bop around. You lob it ahead of you. It goes in a little parabola, it hits the ground and just stops right there and becomes a landmine.
Yeah. And it's the non-player characters have different landmines, like you said, with the egg with Yoshi. But this is the only, you only had the green shell and the banana available to you, no matter which racer you used.
Yeah. And then there's some rare ones. There's the lightning bolt.
The most OP.
Yeah. You want to talk about what that does?
If you couldn't get the lightning bolt if you were in first or second place because of the way the game mechanics were, but you could get it beyond the end. If you're in last place, you were likely to get it, or at least more likely to get it. And if you hit it, every player except you on the board they get hit by lightning. It takes them a second where they kind of stall out, and then they become shrunk. And when they're shrunk, two things are in your advantage. One, they can't go as fast, so their speed is reduced by a lot. And two, if you hit someone while they're shrunk, you flatten them, and it takes them at least 3 or 5 seconds to recover. So you can really knock some people out of leadership positions there.
And the animation of that is cute too, because they don't just hit you and you go splat. You get flattened like a cartoon pancake, and then you go like whoop 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 side to side and flutter down.
Feather fall it down. Yeah.
And then last, I think there's the invincibility star you can get, which does exactly what it does in every Mario game.
Yeah, and it increases your speed too.
Right. So useful to have. Sometimes though, increased speed is not always the best because it means a loss of control. And in some of these karts or tracks, there are very tight turns, bottomless pits and things where like I forgot, like I'm so used to, like I said, I'm so used to Mario Kart 8 that like I've gotten pretty good at like controlling those characters. I can stop on a dime, I can put them exactly where I want, do a lot of that drifting, and it's just a different feel in the original to where I'm like, oh, there's actually a lot of times where like what I want is to like slow down and calmly turn around this track because doing that skid will make me absolutely just like skid so wildly to one side that like it'll take me a while to recover and like reorient myself. Like this is not as tight in terms of controls. It's pretty slippery.
It's very slippery, and some levels more than others, like the ice levels, extremely slippery, and then there's some mud levels where you can't get as much speed, but there's a little more traction, kind of a deal.
There's that. The ghost houses have a lot of places where the track drops off at the borders.
Yep. No, it's in the Koopa Trooper and the Bowser Castle level, like you can fall into lava. There's other places you can fall into water. So there's a lot of hazards.
Yeah, and we'll save Rainbow Road for the end here. So let's talk about the kinds of tracks that you have. As we mentioned, they are themed off of Mario levels. And so your basic one is going to be, it's like Donut Plains or something. It's based on these first levels in Super Mario World. And it's just like, a dirt track and some grass and some, cute little colored blocks. And that's kind of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's Donut Plains 2 and I think Donut Plains 3. I don't know if there's 4. There might be 4 Donut Plains.
I'm not sure.
Not sure, but they progressively harder, and on Donut Plains later, you will see the infamous moles that if you run into them, they suck. They will just stay on you and slow you down until you run into water.
That is not true. You can shake them off.
Oh.
So the drift button, if you tap L or R, your character does a little hop and then drift. If you just tap that and go hop, 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 they pop right off.
No shit.
Yeah,
I've been playing this game 33 years, and you just taught me something. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that, and it happened to me while I was playing today, and it was like it just came right back up. Oh yeah, you just jiggle yourself a bunch, and they come off. I should mention my daughter loves Monty Moles. I think they're her favorite Mario character because whenever we play like Mario Party, or I think they're on the modern Mario Kart on 8. She will very frequently pick that as her character. She likes them. Nice. She thinks they're cute.
I mean, sure.
Ben's a boy. He will pick, the Boo or the Piranha Plant, the more monster-looking character.
Sure.
So you got those. You've got your like chocolate versions of the
chocolate
those kinds
planes.
of things.
Yeah.
Those are
hills, like
notable for mud, as you said. They got to like slog through or try and get around. The other thing that like it's the borders of the track. So it's like either there's like blocks there that like right angles that are hard to deal with, or it's you're in the rough. And when you get off the track and you're in the rough, you're kind of in the shit.
Absolutely. And then, there's mud, and then there's on the dirt track, there's like all these little bumps, and going over those like slows you down and can really get you out of control if you try and turn during those.
Yeah, I noticed I tried to jump over them with that tap. And if I timed it right, I was able to go much faster because it wasn't slowing me down to hit all the little speed bumps. So there's that. But also, there's a lot of like mud pits, which will slow you down worse than even being in the rough on the side of the tracks. So that's those. What other kinds of tracks we got? You want to talk about the Ghost House ones?
Ghost House ones are some of my favorites. The first one is all lined with these blocks, but the thing is, if you run into a block on the side of the track once, it disappears. So now you've got a hole. And in some of the sequel tracks, there's whole sections without blocks, so it's just free for all there. In the first one, though, you really want the feather because you can get a huge advantage on the shortcut that cuts off like a whole section of the track. You got to time it just right. You get on this platform that's kind of it does go to nothing. So if you don't have the feather, you're gonna fall. But if you can time it to where you jump with the feather at the end of that platform, you skip a big part of the track and you get way ahead.
But even then, you have to be going fairly straight to hit that. Like, because what there is there's basically a runway of track that sticks out at perpendicularly. Yep. And so you're trying to jump to that and then get back to the main track. But if you're at an angle or you're not quite controlling yourself, you'll hit that, what's basically a plank, and go right off the side of it.
Oh, yeah. No, you gotta know what you're doing. You're going to time it right. I fell many times before I figured it out.
I got it today, and I was like, yes, it's still there.
Yeah, feels good.
And if you go off the side, of course, you don't die. Your buddy Lakitu on this little cloud comes and fishes you out for it and takes a few of your coins and then plops you on the track, but it eats a lot of time.
Yeah. When you're racing, especially if you're racing your friends, the amount of time it takes to get back on is like you're like clawing your face off. Like, come on!
Well, there's also a thing, though, like we didn't talk about, but like if you bump into another racer, like I jokingly called it bumper cars before, but that can make you can really fly off of a person if you hit them or they hit you. And like I had a couple instances today where like I got bumped from behind and it was like, oh, good, you bopped me real far ahead. But
that happens, yeah.
If you're in a crowded field, that can actually be a pretty big deal trying to like just navigate between all these guys.
And for players like us who like prefer Yoshi, that bump can really knock you out of your sin. But if you're playing Donkey Kong or Bowser, you can get bumped and it may barely affect you at all.
And when you hit somebody as one of those characters, you send them flying.
Yep.
Yeah. I think I would say like the people who are like probably the fanatics or the more experienced players probably always pick them because, again, they'll have the highest top speed, the best handling, and if you're not likely to make a lot of mistakes because you're good at it, you can really demolish in this game with those.
I've actually watched people speedrun this game, and they're almost always Bowser or Donkey Kong. I think like 90% of the ones I've seen are Bowser.
Yeah. So let's see, that's the ghost houses. What else you got? There's Bowser's Castle.
Bowser Castle is my favorite by far because especially the first one, it's all lined with solid concrete. So you can never, the only way you can fly off the track is if you jump over into the lava. And I always appreciate that because, as I said, I like play like Yoshi and Princess. So I'm flying, it's my controls all over the place. But in that one, I can just bump off the side and just keep going my way.
Yeah, I remember, I think today I played one of the later courses where, you could end up in the lava. There's also thwomps there, so they can, if they hit you, you do the flattened pancake whoop 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 thing, and there, whoop, whoop. There's also a lot of like jump ramps, I think, in the Bowser's Castle too. I seem to recall.
Yeah, and I can't remember if it's the first one, but definitely in the second and third one, you can get those the little arrows on the track that just give you a speed boost there for a while.
Right, there's definitely those too, and like I said, those can be helpful, but they can also be like, oh, you just, this is a rail gun that shoots me off the edge of the track. I can't control where I'm going.
Yeah,
with that
you gotta know what you're doing.
Yep. Let's see what else we got.
Vanilla Lake, the ice ones, those were slippery as shit, and they had blocks of ice throughout the level, and it would slow you down if you hit it, but the ice would disappear, so you could kind of make a hole for yourself that on the first and second track, that through the rest of the game or the rest of the race you could speed through.
And I believe any of those blocks that you can destroy, you can also destroy them with shells and things like that too, and carve paths for yourself with that, right?
Yeah. Yep. 100%.
Yep. Okay. And so I think that's all like the main kinds of tracks you see. They're mostly just variations on those themes.
I think the only one we missed is there's a beach one. I can't remember the name of it offhand, but it's like you're on these like islands.
Koopa Beach or whatever it's called. Something like that.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. And again, the hazard there is just water. If you go off the edge into the water, I think you can go in the water a little bit, but if you go too far offshore, you're going to sink, and it's just like falling off the edge of anything else.
Yeah, except you don't have to be fished out of the water. You have to drive. You see like a little dot where your character is, and you have to drive until the edge of the water, and then you submerge, or then you emerge from the water.
Yeah, that takes a long ass time to do.
Yeah, it does.
Not fun. But I actually like those tracks a lot. Like they're pretty and they're fun to drive on. It's just as long as you don't end up in the drink, you're good. And then so once you've beaten the three main courses, which are like Mushroom Cup, Flower Cup, and Star Cup.
And Star Cup. Yep.
And then it's the Special Cup.
Yeah, you got to get gold in all three, and then you can unlock the special. And there's one thing we didn't mention at the first is in the options, they'll ask you 50cc, 100cc, or 150cc. You have to unlock 150 by getting gold in 100. But on 50, the Rainbow Road isn't even an option. So you can beat 50 for fun, but you got to beat 100 in order to unlock the Special Cup.
Right. And 50, 100, and 150 cc's are basically difficulty levels, but it's more than just like difficulty in terms of like you've upped the skill of your opponents. It also changes the handling of the vehicle.
Yeah.
So it's like your engine literally has more oomph, like it has more cc's, and so not only is it more difficult in terms of the other players, but you now have to relearn how to handle your vehicle under changed controls.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's, if you can beat all four cups on 150cc, that is the ultimate original Super Mario Kart player.
Yep. And so the Special Cup, I'm trying to think if there's anything new in it other than the Rainbow Road. I think they're all just harder versions of the other ones, right?
Yeah, there's just sequel tracks other than Rainbow Road.
Okay, so Rainbow Road. Let's talk about this thing. because this becomes a mainstay. Like there's always a Rainbow Road in every Mario Kart, but this is the only one that's kind of a challenge fuck. Every other Rainbow Road is kind of like, you did it, you got there. Like, and so they're way more about having fun than being like the most challenging thing. But this thing is a bitch.
No, this is Mike Tyson and Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. Like, this is hard because, as you said, there's no rails, so you can fall off the track at any time. There's a ton of turns. There's holes in the middle of the track. There's thwomps. There's all kinds of hazards throughout this guy. And it feels like, and I don't know if this is accurate, it probably isn't, but it feels like the other players go a little faster on Rainbow Road than they do in the rest of the game.
It's that they're better at it. You know, the part of it is that not only are there no guardrails, it's relatively narrow.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of these turns they're not only are they tight, but they're right angles. So it's like, it's really like, you know, it's not like a parabolic arc. It's like a right turn and a right turn. And your cart is not really made to do that. It will drift. But not only so you can do one of two things. You can slow down real carefully and slowly make your way around, which will work, but also everyone's going to speed by you. Or what you really have to do is learn to drift these. Just the margin for error is real small. You got to make a perfectly tight little turn and come out of it at just the right moment, or else you're going to skid right off the end.
Yeah, you have to really understand how to brake, how to skid, how to speed up at the right time. Like, you have to be a master of all those for Rainbow Road in order for it to work. And another thing about it is because of the nature of it, Rainbow Road, it's harder to see things on the track sometimes, especially with the question blocks. Sometimes, like, the turns look a little different. Like, it's almost like a visual puzzle in some ways.
It's a visual overload, too, because So, I mean, the background is basically black. It's, blackness below you, but the Rainbow Road itself, true to its name, right? It's these rainbow blocks. And so things like, a shell or a banana peel that's left on there may be hard to notice, especially if it's on like yellow, things like that. The other thing is the power-ups don't help you as much here because your shells and things are going to go right off the edge. You don't want to leave a banana peel because the road's so narrow that you're going to hit it before the other guy does, potentially. And so that edge, or like a speed boost, I mean, maybe there's a couple of straightaways where you can use it. But generally speaking, if you speed boost, you're just going to rocket yourself into the abyss.
Well, like I was playing it earlier today, and I got a mushroom when I'm driving through Rainbow Road. I'm like, there's no place I feel safe anywhere on this track. So I just held onto the mushroom the whole thing and just didn't get any other power-ups because I didn't want to risk it.
Yeah, I think the straightaway that's at the end and start of the track is probably your best bet for using that. But you're right. Otherwise, there's no good place to use it.
Well, and even that straightaway has thwomps. So if you mistime it, you're screwed. Right.
And or the star, it makes you invincible, which is good, but again, it ups your speed to a point where, like, again, you don't want to go any faster. You can barely control where you're going as it is.
Yeah, if I get the star, I've never successfully had a star in Rainbow Road and not fallen off ever.
Yeah, yep. So it is very, very hard. I remember feeling very proud of myself when I beat that and got a gold on Rainbow Road, which I definitely did as a kid.
Same.
And like now every time Rainbow Road shows up again, like it's all it's fun,
Yeah. You kids have it easy nowadays.
Mario Kart is not a hard game. And I have fun playing it with my kids. They have fun playing it with me. And they'll play with each other too, sometimes without me being involved at all. I'm just like, great. They got up, they said, let's play Mario Kart. Okay. You be this guy, I be that guy. I'm like, this is as intended. This is, this is right. And that's the racing side of it, but there is another mode to talk about.
Yes.
Battle mode.
which they had the idea for battle mode when they first conceived of it, and then they ditched the idea, and then later they brought it back, and Miyamoto was like, no, we have to have this. Like, the whole point of this is fun, and so they found a way to get it back in.
Yeah, if you want to talk about what battle mode is,
you have 3 balloons, and they represent your life, and your opponent has 3 balloons. And you're on a track it's not a racing track. It's like it's just like a big, think of it almost like a parking lot, kind of, with different ways, to kind of maneuver around through it.
It's an arena.
It's an arena, perfect. And there's question blocks that you can run over just like normal. And if you have a banana, or a green shell or a red shell, and you can successfully affect your partner with it, they lose a balloon, and whoever loses all 3 balloons loses, keeps the other balloons wins.
Man, I logged so many hours, me and my sister, playing this. It really, like, the gladiatorial combat of using those power-ups against either the NPCs or your opponent in the races is great, and having an entire mode of the game dedicated to just that was a stroke of genius, because this is like, classic couch co-op, like just me against you. I've got my character on one half of the screen. You got your character on the bottom. If I look over, I can kind of tell where you are from looking at your half, and just managing those sight lines to try and line up a shot. Endless fun.
One of the many reasons why I love this game is because it was such a good excuse to hang out with friends. Of like, we could have a racing tournament, and then we could have a versus battle mode tournament, and we could fill up the whole day playing the same cartridge.
Yeah. No, I did. I definitely spent afternoons doing this. Like I said, you can't really play it as much by yourself. I think, can you play it against an NPC opponent? I can't remember.
Not in the first version that we're talking about, no.
Yeah. But good thing I had a sister, because we played this endlessly. Definitely friends came over, or I went over to their house. Everybody had it. It was always good times to throw this on. And like I said, a great way to extend the life of this game that just made it feel like, you could always, it was a match, it was like a sport. You could always play.
Yeah. Yeah, like NBA Jam or ice hockey or any of the great sports games, or even Street Fighter 2, and it just had Street Fighter 2, you could play through as like the regular like championship mode, but it was just you fighting the same fighters that you would fight in versus mode, whereas battle mode was very different from racing mode in Super Mario Kart. Yeah,
it was its own unique thing. Yeah. And again, this is just you and another human player. There's the hide and seek element to it, which is fun, because you can, these are roughly open arenas, but there are places where there's walls and things you can go behind and paths, and they're big enough that it's not like you can see where the other person is at any given time based on the kind of the angle that you're driving at. You, like I said, you either have to notice them in your field of view, or by looking over at their side of the screen, kind of like, oh, I know where that is. That's in that other corner. Notice. But yeah, that hide and seek element to it is also really cool. Like, this would show up later in things like GoldenEye, as similar, like those matches would go. I remember playing that in the dorms in college when that came. Constantly. Was a big deal. Yeah. And it's basically this. It's any, Fortnite, now, is this. It's just a more complex version of it.
Oh yeah, I mean, Halo Capture the Flag was, like, just in any of these games where you can just, like, you and your buddy can just, or buddies with later consoles where you can do 4 people, or even land it to 16 or whatever. Like, there was, it's like playing poker. It's like the rules of poker don't change.
Or paintball. This is more like paintball. Even. Yeah. Yeah. I loved doing this. In some ways, I liked this even more than the racing. Because it was the best part of the game was, again, having these power-ups, which is like, that's what separated from being just racing. Just go, who can do this the fastest? It was like, now you've got this arsenal. Again, not only did this show up in later games, but like, there's other media in where this shows up. So I was thinking about, like in Wreck-It Ralph, for example, the vast majority of Wreck-It Ralph takes place inside a game called Sugar Rush, which is, a knockoff of Mario Kart is what it is.
Yeah. Yes.
And it's all candy-coated racetracks and, power-ups and different racers with different little, gimmicks and stuff. It's very clear what they're drawing on. And then when the 2023 Mario movie came around, the animated one, there was a Mario Kart section in that movie.
As you said, Mario's been in a lot of things, and his own main franchise. But beyond that, he's been in a million things. None of them, to my knowledge, have anywhere near the indelibility of this game. Like, this is, when you think Mario, you think Mario games and Mario Kart number one.
Yeah, like I said, I won't say I was surprised to see a reference to it in that 2023 movie. I didn't know they would give kind of an entire 7-minute sequence to kart racing in it. But also, guess what's not in it? Again, like Mario Tennis, Mario Golf, he doesn't do all of those things. But kart, yeah, we're gonna put in the kart stuff because this.
Well,
is now,
and I. Yeah, have you been to Mario or Nintendo World at Universal?
I have not, but I'm aware there's a Mario Kart ride there.
That is the ride. Like, there is a Mario ride, and it is Mario Kart. Like, there's no other. It was, I'm sure, the meeting where they were like, what Mario, thing are we going to put in there? It was probably everyone unanimous decision.
Oh, that's a no-brainer. Yeah, it's like,
yeah,
we need a vehicle that can put Mario in it. What do we got? What can we draw on for this? Yeah, it's obvious. But I think on the ride, you do get to sort of use like some of these power-ups in a way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's the whole point is, like, you're picking up power-ups. You're shooting at enemies. You and your team, you're trying to win the game with your team, but you're also competing for who can, kill the most or whatever kind of things. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. As you said, this is they're going to be making Mario Kart games into the foreseeable future.
Absolutely. As they should.
I'm shocked it took them this long, actually, to come out with the most recent one. Because it's been a while. Like, Mario Kart 8, I believe, was released on the Wii U.
Oh.
I think. It wasn't on the original Wii, I don't think. It was a different Mario Kart on the Wii. But
yeah.
But so there was Mario Kart on the Wii U, which is 8, and then they just ported it over to the Switch. The original Switch, relatively early in its life cycle. And I think the original Switch is 2017, somewhere around there.
Sounds right.
And we didn't get the Switch 2 until just this year. And we got the new Mario Kart finally, again, like, 7 or 8 years later it took them to do it. Now, what they did do is they released a bunch of tracks for 8, they almost as if a whole new game.
Nice.
But it's just one of those things where it's like this formula, just they figured out something that it's like a can't lose.
Yeah. That's cool. I haven't played. I've played a lot of Mario 64, and then I got to play a couple of other Mario Karts, like maybe on the GameCube and stuff. But I never played the Switch one, so they're on my list of, like, whenever I can get my hands on those. I really want to play every Mario Kart in the series.
Oh, dude, yeah, 8 is fantastic. It's great.
Nice.
I want to talk a little about the quote unquote ending, to the extent this game has an ending. Which is just when you complete a race. It's the same thing every time. But if you want to talk about what happens, it's this cute little cutscene.
Yeah, well, every time you compete a race, like, first is so many points, second is so many points. So, you're accumulating points like that. But if you're in the top 3 by the end of each cup, they give you, the stands, the 3, 2, 1. And if whoever's on the first tier, they have a bottle, and they don't drink from it, which apparently they did on the Super Famicom. But for America, they were like, or the international release, they were like, nope, family friendly. They're not even going to drink. Kind of reminded me of Soda Pop Insky versus, Drunk Insky for Mike Tyson that we talked about. But yeah, so then there's this big fish. I can't remember the name of the character, the fish character, but he pops out the trophy.
It
lands. Cheap. Thank you. It'll pop out the trophy of the player. So if you're third, it'll pop out a bronze. If you're second, it'll pop out a silver. And if you're gold, or first, pop out a gold. And then whoever is in the first position, though, they have the bottle, and then they shoot the cork, and it hits the cheap, and it just, and then just kind of goes away, and then it says congratulations.
It's the giant cheap that like eats you in Super Mario 3. It's huge. It's like balloon, makes these balloon kind of thing. But yeah, it blows up and there's confetti, I think, that comes out of it. But that's it. Like that's all there is. I mean, there's no story to the game. That's it. But that's, to the extent there's an ending, that's what it is. There is a way to roll credits. I guess when you beat Rainbow Road, that's when you get the credits.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no story, and that's what made the port really easy to the international releases. They changed very few things, the drinking thing, and there's just not much text. So, from the Japanese to English, it just wasn't that hard.
Yeah, you mentioned something we forgot to mention about the racing, which is that point system.
Yes.
So the way it works is if you win a race, you get 9 points, I think, for first place, 6 for second, 3 for third, and 1 for fourth.
Yep.
And so your place is the aggregate of your scores over the 4 or 5 races you do per cup.
Yes.
I forgot about this. You could be mathematically eliminated and you're out. Like, it'll just end. It's like, sorry, your game is over.
Yeah. So when you're racing on the very first track of any cup, you have 3 extra lives, basically. And so if you come in 5th, 6th, 7th, or 8th, you lose a life and you can redo the track. Now, however, there's a strategy involved, because if you're later in the cup and you're getting like 4th and 3rd place, and you're like, I'm not going to place overall if I get 4th or 3rd, you can use one of those extra lives to just quit the track and then try it over so you can get 1st or 2nd to get more points.
Right, because you're sitting there going, if I come in 4th, like, I'm not going to get enough points. I'd rather die, try again, and maybe I'll come in first this time. Yeah.
Yep. And it's very hard to do on this game, and this is one thing they would fix in later versions. But whoever the computer kind of designated to be first, besides the player, would pretty much always find their way back to first, no matter what you did. So there's one level or there's a couple levels where you got to jump over a part of your own track. And if you hit an enemy with a red shell or any shell, right as they're jumping, they won't make it all the way, and they'll have to do half the track over. So you would think, well, they're not going to place in the top 4 at all. But if you do it early in the race, they will eventually get back to 1st or 2nd if they're behind you. So if you wanted to, if like Koopa Troopa was always win number 1 and you wanted him to get no points, you had to hit him with a red shell or something really close to the end in order for that to happen. And even then he would still speed up, but you could make it happen if you really timed it well.
Yeah, the games still do this where it will essentially assign the NPC characters a skill level, so that like it's not like it's totally random who's coming in 1st, 2nd, and 3rd every time. Other than you, of course. But like, so let's say you come in 1st, it's going to be Luigi in 2nd, Bowser in 3rd, and Princess in 4th, or whatever it decides. And then if you come in 3rd, then it's going to be those characters roughly in that order for 1st, 2nd, and 4th, right?
Yep.
Somehow it's like it decides this is who's going to be good at this today, and they're that way. Because if it was truly random, then you'd always win, because no one would aggregate enough points to get anywhere near you. But it, as you said, it creates these interesting scenarios where you're like, you want to not only win, but you want to try and mathematically screw them so that they can't get close to your aggregate score. But it's very hard to do. Like I said, if you hit them with like a red shell real close to the finish line, you stop them just as like 3 other people go through, then you can knock them down. Otherwise, as you said, they're going to work their way right back up and be fine.
Yeah, and what I've found is very interesting that if Koopa Troopa is supposed to come in first, like, and they'll show you it's not a secret. They line them up. you're last in the first race, and whoever's lined up in first, that's who's going to get first and center. But if Koopa Troopa is lined up first and you knock him with a red shell right before the finish line and he winds up coming in fourth or fifth, then whoever came, let's say Bowser comes in second, then the next time, like, they won't even factor Koopa Troopa in because he doesn't have any points. So now Bowser's like the best player, the best NPC for this cup, the rest of the cup. But if you do it in the third cup, then they'll still keep trying to get Koopa Troopa there.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, you can definitely see the math of this as you play it long enough. And it's, it's smart. I mean, it's hard to, it would be nicer if you could exploit it a little bit, but it's like I said, unless you hit some of these players with something that stops them real close to the finish line so they're not going to have enough time to compensate for it, it's not going to be a factor.
Now, I believe, and it's been a while, but I believe in the N64 version, if you knocked someone with a red shell, let's say, at the beginning of the last lap, they usually wouldn't super speed their way back to their position before the lap was over. Like, it would usually, like, this game, they would. But in the N64 version, it would be a little more realistic.
Yeah, part of it's that it's hard to keep an eye on what the other players are doing because, yes, the map is in the lower half of the screen if you're single player, but you don't have time to look at that really. You got to navigate where you're going.
Yeah. And even if you're on a straightaway, you never know when a red shell or banana peel or something like that's going to be in your way.
Yep. Well, that's kind of Super Mario Kart. I think we've kind of covered everything. Is there anything else you want to talk about with it, Rich, before we kind of move on to final summations?
I think we left it all out on the table there. I can't think of anything else for this game other than it's just fun.
Yep, it's a delight. It has been. So, closing thoughts on why you think Super Mario. I mean, it definitely endures, but it endures in its new iterations. But what do you think it is that made this game so special?
It started just like a lot of examples of great art. It started as something else, and people who were working on this, and I think we talked about this in a lot of video game episodes. The artists who worked at Nintendo were very good at allowing things to evolve. It wasn't like I have a vision and we're sticking to it no matter what. And so as every new iteration throughout the programming of this game evolved, they just made it better and better, and you can just feel the love that is poured into this game. And Miyamoto talks about, like, he cares about fun. It's all about fun. Is this game fun? And this game is a blast. It was a blast to play on my own. It was a blast to play with friends, and it's a blast to talk about, even 30 plus years later.
One thing I've noticed about Nintendo as we've kind of delved into their catalog, certainly their marquee stuff with Zelda and with Mario that we've covered before, their first party stuff. I mean, the company, especially Miyamoto, as you said, they're very, very good at being open to seeing where the fun takes them. It's kind of this thing that, like, you and I have a lot of improv experience. And there's that thing in improv, which is like you have to let go of the idea of where I think this scene will be funny. And you just have to kind of ride this current of going like, well, that's not where this is going. But if I go with the current, it'll take me somewhere fun, even if it's not the place I originally thought I was going. Right.
Yeah. Yes.
And Nintendo is so good, as you said, like, again, they set out to, let's do something like F-Zero. That was the mission. That was all they had. And each time the opportunity came, it was like, oh, let's add Mario. Oh, that's fun. What else can we add? Well, let's add this battle mode. And they said they took it out and they were like, no, this is pretty fun. Let's put it back in, right? They're really good at recognizing these instincts that they have and going like, yeah, but this is really neat, right? What if we did this? Wouldn't this be cool? And that spirit is in all of their best stuff.
Absolutely. And anytime they run into an obstacle, they have a creative solution to it that, like, makes the game even better. So, like, they always run into, like, not enough memory or not enough whatever, and they're like, okay, this is an opportunity, not something to, like, feel bad about. Like, how can we use this obstacle as an opportunity to make the game better?
Yeah, they really are great innovators. Like, it's the reason, as much as, I love, a lot of developers in the video game space, but Nintendo has always been kind of special. And not just because, my childhood in the 80s was built around what they did.
Sure.
It's their design philosophy that is, has really set them apart, for 40 years. Like nobody does it like these guys, and that's why it's like where other developers are like, we've got to come up with the best story. We've got to come up with the most amazing graphics. We got to come up with, and Nintendo's always kind of gone like, yeah, but this is the most fun.
Yeah, I mean, the Sega Genesis was a better machine than the Super Nintendo in some ways, or it was definitely sooner, way sooner. It was like 88 when it came out. The Atari Jaguar was way better. Like the Sega CD was better as far as hardware, but the games were never as fun as the Super Nintendo or the original Nintendo.
That's the thing is, right? Like every one of their major consoles, you look at like, was the GameCube more powerful than the PS2, or did it have a better library? Maybe not, but the first party stuff on it was like unassailable, right? There was just something that like they would come along each time, and this company would keep finding a way to reinvent themselves, reinvent even stuff that's like old, right? Like you look at Mario, and like we've covered Mario 3, World, and 64, and you look at each one as an innovative leap. And if we ever covered like, I don't know, Galaxy, which is probably my favorite, or one of my favorite Mario games, the Galaxy 1 and 2, like they found a way to take something that at that point had become stale and go, oh, we can find a way to turn this on its head that you won't believe, right? And they just kept doing it. They still do it today. Yeah. Like they're still doing it to this day in a way that you just have to sit back and go like, they're masters. And it's, it's not just Miyamoto, but it's, that guy has something special.
Yeah, he clearly, his essence has affected, all of the people who he's worked with and who have continued to, carry the torch after him.
Yeah, just whimsy, the power of whimsy, basically.
Well said.
All right. Well, Rich, I'm very glad we covered Super Mario Kart. This is a great idea. So if people want to find your cool stuff, where do they go? How do they find it?
Hey, if anyone ever wants to take an improv class from me or any of the other fine teachers I have at the Dare to Fail Improv School, it's an online school. You can take it from anywhere that you have a computer and an internet connection, and the first drop-in is free. So you just, as long as you're only sacrificing 2 hours, and I guarantee you'll have a good time.
And if you mention Nostalgia Marcanum when you do it, it's still free for that first one.
It's still free.
It makes no difference at all.
You get 10% off of the free class.
Exactly. So I'll put a link, of course, to Dare to Fail in the show notes.
Thanks, man.
So in addition to this show, if you want to find me, there are 2 other podcasts that I'm involved in. One is Playing by Ear, which is a music podcast I do with my wife and brother-in-law. Each episode, we or a guest will bring in an album and we'll break it down track by track. This is coming out, I believe, in January. So the 2 albums that are coming that month is Michael Jackson's Bad, and an album by New Zealand artist Bic Runga called Drive that my wife picked out, which is a pretty cool indie, like, female singer-songwriter album. The other podcast I'm involved with, you got to drop a few bucks, but not very many. You got to go to patreon.com/stillloadingpod, and you can listen to Still Muppeting, which is a monthly podcast I do over there with Josh Koval as the co-host. We both cover a different Muppet movie, or sometimes episodes of The Muppet Show, or related things like Labyrinth, The Dark Crystal. So we've just started that. So right now there's episodes out on the original Muppet movie and Muppet Christmas Carol. I believe what's up next for January, as you're hearing this, is going to be Josh is picking some episode of The Muppet Show that we're going to cover before we get back into the main sequence with Great Muppet Caper and Dark Crystal. Those would be up next after that. So if you're interested in the Muppets or Jim Henson at all, go drop a few bucks at patreon.com/stillloadingpod. If you want to get in touch with us, the links to all of our social media places are in the show notes. And of course, if you want to make us super duper happy, go to wherever you found this podcast and drop it a review. That makes a big difference. I know you're out there. I know you haven't reviewed it yet. You're feeling super guilty. I'm going to lay a big old guilt trip on you right now. now. Do it. I'll wait. Awesome. Thanks for doing it. Yeah, no, it actually does make a big difference in terms of the podcast visibility. Please do drop a review. Also, word of mouth, man. We love word of mouth. Just tell somebody, hey, I listened to this podcast. I loved it. You might love it too. So with all of that, I think that'll do it for another episode. Man, Rich, thanks again, man. Always good having you on.
Thank you. Thank
All
you,
right.
Doug.
So until next time, that is one more entry in the Nostalgium Arcanum.
HBO's The Last of Us is a hit, proving a video game can become a prestige dystopian drama. This spring, HBO is doing it again with another iconic game.
It's been 10 years since our kingdom fell. The only thing we have left? Hope.
I have important cargo I need smuggled to Rainbow Road. People say you used to drive?
People say a lot of things.
You got a name?
It's a me. Mario. So what's the cargo?
Not what. Who? She's a princess. At least she was. Until he took over.
We'll never make it on foot.
You won't have to.
Let's go. From the producers of The Last of Us and the master storytellers behind Mario Karts 1 through 8.
What's it like out here?
Karting out here isn't a game. If we're gonna make it, we need all the help we can get.
It's a Luigi time.
Everything on this road wants us dead.
What is that thing?
Goomba, sentient fungus with shoes for legs.
All your favorite wacky racers reimagined as complex, dramatic HBO characters.
I'm Yoshi. I'm bisexual.
Name's Doug. Also, I'm bisexual.
HBO picked the wrong game to do this with. Reeves Variety. Yeah, this ain't it. And it's the New York Times.
You eat that poison?
It makes me feel big, okay? I need to feel big!
Because Bowser's out there. And he's the main bad guy.
When we're out there in our carts,
Woohoo! I love this!
I need you to trust me.
Hold on!
I'll get you to Rainbow Road.
Just shit on my six! You can dodge it! No. It's red.
What if we crash?
A little guy in a cloud comes and uses a fishing pole to put you back on the road.
Oh. Okay.